Hello and welcome back to History Talk. Today we're going to be diving in to what exactly the Lockwood Report suggested. So, yeah, let's do it. History Talk. Talk about history. Hello and welcome back to History Talk. Today we're going to be talking about what exactly the Lockwood Committee suggested should happen. So first of all, the Lockwood Committee suggested that higher education should be available to everyone in Northern Ireland based on academic ability. So it didn't matter if you were poor or wealthy, you would get into university, or you should get into university rather, if you had the academic ability. If you didn't, well, they were essentially saying fuck you. But second university was needed for Northern Ireland, due to the increase in numbers of accessing higher education and the inability of Queen's, which is the university in Belfast, to expand any further. And finally, or not finally at all really, the second university should be located in Coleraine. Now, if it had stopped here, then maybe it wouldn't become such a big issue. But the final thing really was the punch in the face to all of the Derry people at this time. Because it was that Magee College, their really only high-level education centre in Derry, the thing that they hung on to be able to go to, should be cut off for government funding and should cease to exist as a university institution. Now, the final two recommendations were highly controversial, and while the cabinet were most unionist, they were concerned about the proposal relating to Magee, because, it wasn't really the best proposal when it comes to, trying to not cause violence. So, Terence O'Neill, after much discussion, insists that the government's response to the Lockwood Committee would include the statement that the government cannot agree that there is no alternative to the discontinuance of Magee College as a university institution. However, once again, O'Neill had made a mistake. He had misunderstood that he needed to go farther if he wanted to appease Catholics and people of Derry. And the people of Derry. Because when rumours began to spread about this, there was a massive strength in opposition to the report. The citizens of Derry were highly underestimated by O'Neill and his ministers, and the controversy went to a long-lasting impact on the growing tensions between the nationalist community and the Stormont government. This was going to cause some major issues. Now, the news of the Lockwood Committee that they decided on the Coleraine as a second university, this was very quickly indeed. The University of Derry Committee is quickly formed in response to this decision. They held a large protest meeting at Guildhall in Derry and later organised a motorcade to Stormont, which, they'll be later joined by many others, and some of them quite wrong. Anyway, the representatives met with Terence O'Neill. However, the Prime Minister was not going to budge from this. He maintained a firm resolve to accept the Lockwood Committee's recommendation. During a vote at the Stormont, he applied the whip to ensure the party members voted for the Coleraine proposal. Now, the whip, you could argue that is not really a truly democratic way of doing things. You don't elect, if you elect your representative and you say to your representative, well, no, I don't support this at all. Please vote in our interests that we don't want this. And then your representative is like, well, sorry, I'll lose my seat in the party, and then, well, you'll have no one to go for, so I'm going to vote against that. So, at the end of the day, the whip, in this case, subverting democracy somewhat. Anyway, what exactly was the reaction to the Lockwood Report in Derry? On the 29th of January 1965, A statement from the committee, or University of Derry Committee, if you want clarification on that, made it very plain that it was not just the proposed closure of McGee College that was cause of concern, but there were also wider problems at the root of it. The committee felt that the decision to locate a second university outside the city was further evidence of government neglect of Derry, which had recently lost railroad services and suffered from fierce unemployment and a massive lack of housing. Then came John Hume. The case for locating the University in Derry was supported by both the Nationalist and Unionist committees in the city. The University of Derry Committee consisted of 3 Catholics and 3 Protestant members, so equal, as it should be. It was led by John Hume, a local Catholic teacher educated in Maynooth University, who had been previously involved in setting up a credit union movement in the city. His leadership of the Action Committee was the first involvement in a political campaign, but he was soon joined in his, leading of the, not leading, but he was soon joined in his disregard of the Lockwood Committee's report when Albert Anderson, Eddie McKeer and Arthur Jack met up with Terence O'Neill and Herbert Kirk at Stormont. They told them that they would not agree to a compromise and that the second university should be located in Derry. As I mentioned before, a motorcade was held towards Stormont. This contained 2,000 vehicles. Now, the Unionist government at Stormont was somewhat surprised at the strength of the opposition to the Lockwood report in Derry. However, at the parliamentary debates that followed, O'Neill undertook certain measures to ensure that Lockwood recommendations were accepted. Now, the day after the Stormont motorcade, Terence O'Neill held a secret meeting with 7 high-profile members of the Ulster Unionist Party from Derry. It was not widely known at the time that this meeting had taken place. It wasn't actually known until May 1965, when Unionist MP Robert Nixon referred in a speech to nameless, faceless men who had tried to influence O'Neill in relation to the university controversy. At the time, Nixon alleged that the Unionists had tried to persuade O'Neill to ignore the plea from Derry and locate the university in Coleraine. However, the minutes of the meeting, which were recorded, stated something that was very different. They stated that the fact that the faceless men were trying to ensure that McGee College would form some part of the new university. Nonetheless, sectarian attitudes were clearly evident during the discussion. Both O'Neill and the Unionist men revealed their concerns that the economic development of Derry might lead to a further increase in the Catholic population, which would then threaten the political control of Unionists that they held in the city. Unionist control of the city was based on a delicate system of gerrymandering, which, is pretty unjust anyway. But it's kind of a worse sign when you're saying even gerrymandering won't work for you. Like, you're so wrong and so discriminatory that even if it doesn't matter, even if you try to draw the lines, you're still gonna land up with the defeat. Well, that's a pretty bad sign. So then comes the Stormont debate. It lasts 16 hours and took place over 3 days. The debate was at times heated, and O'Neill rejected all allegations that the decision to locate the university in Coleraine was evidence of discrimination. And when Nixon came out with his report and allegation, he was immediately expelled from the party. A petition calling for an inquiry into the proceedings of the Lockwood Committee was signed by 15,000 people, but was ignored completely by the government. Lockwood made a statement denying any accusation that he had been influenced by O'Neill in favour of the Coleraine controversy, The release of archival material relating to the proceedings of the Lockwood Committee 30 years later did show that senior civil servants in Stormont worked closely with the committee and they had influence over them. However, if one looks at it, one could say that they did base their decisions off practices that were long used in the establishment of British universities. If they are unjust, basically they are used in British universities as well. So they did nothing different in Northern Ireland, they simply did what they do in England. However, it was clear the Lockwood Committee did not really grasp the situation that was happening in Northern Ireland, because obviously if you're setting up a university in England, it's not the same as setting up a university in Northern Ireland when their tensions are high. At that time you didn't really expect that you'd be causing a war by deciding where to locate a university. And that is exactly what begins to happen. Coleraine begins to ignite the already tensious area you have in Northern Ireland. And that is what we're going to look at in the next video. Join us then, when we'll be looking at the impact of the Coleraine University controversy. Thank you for listening to this episode of History News. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel and watch our other videos if that's what you want to do. If not, well, could you reconsider maybe? I'm not pushing on you, just saying. You might enjoy them, or you might be educated with them. You might not enjoy them, you might just be educated. Anyway, join us next time when we'll be looking at other stuff. So, go ahead, view the videos, subscribe to the YouTube channel, that sort of thing. Thank you for listening.